We're live right now.
You guys are live right now.
Okay. We usually wait a minute for people to log on, and so it's kind of awkward time right now.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, but
Awkward time.
Awkward time.
Used to it.
Yeah, that's part of it. But whoever's on right now, welcome to Conversations with Candidates, and this is Sam Talley. Sasan's here. Kendra, hello.
Can you see and hear us?
Yeah, that's what we always. Can everybody see and hear? Some people giving us feedback on that.
I like the new shirts.
Oh, thanks.
They're the best.
Really good.
I wish I had one.
Yeah.
You do. You
Oh,
just
wait a
don't wear
minute, I
it.
do have one.
I'll drop the link so you can order one for yourself.
Yes, that's a good filler for time while we're waiting for people to.
There you go.
I've got a good filler for time. I would like to request that Sam shows us the Lisa.
Oh, the Lisa. I can't show you the Lisa. I'm not Lisa.
But
Only
you could-
Lisa
you
can
could
show
pretend
you
to
the
be
Lisa.
Lisa and
No,
show-
you
What
need
is
to
the
ask.
Lisa?
What is the Lisa? I don't know.
My wife has her own
Signature.
signature copywritten dance move.
I was wondering.
Oh, I saw that on
Yeah.
Facebook when she was doing the.
It only comes out so often.
Oh my
we
God.
Haven't, we
Don't you
haven't
think?
seen it
I
in
think
years.
Sam should show us what it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It would be the Sam doing the Lisa. It wouldn't be the Lisa. That's not good. That's not good at all.
Well,
So.
veto on that note.
Okay, we've got 32 people with us.
All right.
Oh, great.
We'll go ahead and start then. So, hello, if you're just joining us, Sam Talley, Ward 3 candidate. Sam, we'll go ahead right into it. Tell us about you and your background
Hey.
for those that don't know you.
First of all, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for having me. I was excited all day to get here, and this is my first event, and
All right.
to speak at in front of a group, and I couldn't be happier that it was this group. And I just owe you a big thank you for having me,
Well, thank you.
and for having everybody. I mean, it's just it means a lot. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Tell the viewers about me. Okay.
And thanks for coming, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would absolutely be wherever you needed me, whenever you needed me. And I
Awesome.
think we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight,
Yeah.
our relationship
Absolutely.
and history. But
Fantastic.
born and raised in Norman. My mom is from Norman. My dad is from Norman. My grandparents lived in Norman. My great-grandparents ran a clothing store here in Norman called Hales.
Okay. I didn't realize
back
that.
in the 20th century.
Okay.
And for a long time. And my parents both graduated from high school here. My wife and I graduated from high school here. We're
Yeah.
high school sweethearts. We go a long way back in Norman. And so I'm so glad that this is my home. We're raising our 3 kids now, 2 of whom go to CCS this year, but have been in Norman Public Schools. We have a daughter at Whittier, and we just wouldn't think of living anywhere else.
Yeah.
I'm an attorney and a business owner, and work down at Talley Turner Sice in Burtman with my partners and our great people down there on Main Street in Norman. Talley has been running a law office there since 1982 is when we moved there, but we've been in the practice of law since 1972 through an extension of my father, Dick Talley. And I'm involved with my wife in her businesses. She runs RA Real Estate Group and has an unbelievable team there. Just a special person that can do special things, and they've got a special team. And couldn't be more thrilled about that. And Scratch Kitchen and Cocktails, my partners and I are partners with Brady Sexton, and so proud of that establishment and all that it stands for, and serves the people of our community great food and good times. It's been a tough year, but we're surviving over there, and various other businesses. So
It's a great place to have a cocktail. By the way.
that's what I hear.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. Do you know from experience?
Yeah.
Okay.
We go in
so-
there for. They have amazing specialty drinks.
It is. It's a neat
Good
place.
place, yeah.
I'm glad that we have it here in
Yeah.
town.
And I
So-
consider Brady a friend of mine. I think he's a good guy as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The next one is kind of obvious, but why are you running? Talk about what inspired this, why you're doing it.
I just felt like the way I try to live day in and day out is about credibility and trust and building relationships and the relationships I have. And I saw from our city government a breakdown of credibility, a breakdown of relationships, a breakdown of trust.
Kind of starting when, like the Rosenthal years, or kind of maybe now, or
I think it's been going on for a while, but especially in the last 12 months
Right.
have been remarkable. And I started to think about running as a big supporter of Norman Regional Hospital, and I'm lucky enough to be on their board with an unbelievable group of people.
Yeah.
Norman Regional is unbelievable and led by, I think, one of the better CEOs
Richie Split.
in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Anyway, when the city government, in my opinion, took the Inspire Health issues and started attacking them instead of supporting them. And attack's a strong word, but that's the way I felt. I
Right.
felt like Richie Split was being cross-examined and instead of discussed with. That's when it started for me, and I started to make up my mind about a call to serve. And then it just continues on in the timeline.
right?
Defunding the police, and I've heard it argued both ways, whether it's defunding, not defunding. I think that nationally we have accepted the term defunding as a way to talk about this discussion. I was in absolute opposition of, and it crystallized a desire to run because we need credibility, we need trust, we need good decision making.
Public safety.
And Norman has never not supported its police department.
right.
It doesn't mean that we can't be conversational. Hi. Hi.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're getting shot.
Yeah. Hello.
Casual.
No. Hi. It doesn't mean we can't be or don't need to be conversational with law enforcement. But what happened this year, I didn't think was conversational.
Well, I'm going to go back to something you said.
It's unacceptable.
And we'll get into that. And we agree. I want to go back to something you said about Richie Split being just completely browbeat.
I was there.
By Allison.
I was
Patrone.
there.
And can you boil that down to a very quick synopsis for people to tell them what happened to one of our great CEOs in this state? What our city council did to him?
He. You can have a lot of opinions about it. I'm just going to share mine.
Yeah.
All right. I was there for a reason to support Inspire Health. I think one of the most, well put together, thoughtful, transparent, progressive plans to take healthcare to the next level in not only Norman but Cleveland County and our surrounding areas that depend on us. And he stood for hour upon hour, answered some of the same questions over and over. But it was all boiled down to one thing: why should we trust you? Why should we trust you? Why should we give you our vote? It appeared disingenuous at times.
Right.
It appeared to reach the point of disrespect. It appeared to miss the point of what was going on. And this magical thing is going to happen in Norman, to where our old hospital that served our community so well for so long is being updated, modernized, and we're doing something just even more magical with what we're doing with the Porter campus or the health corridor at the same time. It's such a no-brainer decision, and it wasn't treated like that. It was treated like there were discussions amongst the elected officials about what they wanted to see from it or say about it. And then
the people want to see a pattern of this.
And then we all got to see the show and the display of it. I was extremely disappointed. I reached out as a citizen only to our council member. I did not get much of a response. I kind of emailed and said that I thought that Inspire Health and Norman Regional was being talked about the way that the TIF district sometimes gets talked about. And
Demonized.
they're completely, wholly separate.
Right.
And I pretty much made up my mind at that time when that was going on, and that was before, COVID. That was before police became the issue of all issues, and what you guys have now responded to as Unite Norman, and have brought so much awareness and so much conversation. And I think that, from my perspective, and I know we're going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about this topic. It's a big topic. I've heard you guys all ask me about it. Why didn't I sign the petitions? but why, who am I and what do I support? I mean, and I'm going to answer that, but
Sure.
don't think for a second that I'm just not extremely grateful
Yeah.
for what Unite Norman has brought. You brought so much awareness.
Well, we appreciate that.
And if you want to jump into that, I mean, that's a big topic. And I know that people think or equate me with not signing the petition, maybe, is
Okay.
not supportive of Unite Norman.
Sorry, can everybody hear on this?
Yes,
Okay,
and there's
good.
a lot of people asking the
Yeah.
question about
Okay,
the
great,
petition.
great.
So
Yeah,
that's
I-
a great time.
We'll go into it if you don't mind. And I think you've already answered. What was your response to calls to defund the police? I think we know where you
Oh.
stand there, but you want to kind of just elaborate for a second on it?
I was appalled. And I brought my newspaper here that I carry with me in my election materials. When in June, my wife and I absolutely told Norman PD, we got your 6, and we support you. And I knew at that time, as Unite Norman was forming, and it was actually fun. I had I have so many friends, and I had a lot of people asking, what I thought about it. And I give advice sometimes in my day job. I got asked advice, and I said the message is so strong.
You gave me some advice during
Yeah.
the deal.
Yeah, well, maybe we talk about that.
Yeah.
There's some going around.
Yeah.
For me, on signing the petition, it was really hard, and I never did not sign to not support you guys.
Was it fear? What was it?
No, it wasn't. It was not fear at all. It was me saying I already knew I was running, and that was going to be the way that I chose to respond and act. I wanted to be on the ballot. I wanted to put myself out there, and I wanted to be about election over recall, but I certainly am not judgmental about recall, and it certainly should not discredit my positions on constitutional issues or the police. Because I'm telling you guys, by the time that decision had already happened, I'd already been to court with business owners on constitutional issues and against our mayor's proclamation that was ruled unconstitutional.
This
And
law.
so I understand. I don't want Unite Norman, Russ, San, Kendra, all of you guys to think that me not signing the recall petition was because of you. It's because I personally believe in elections. And that's the most honest way I can answer it.
Do you not believe in recalls as part of the democratic process?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, and I absolutely do. And I respect that, especially with Ward 3, that you've established the quota for the will of the people.
Right.
And now I personally view the lawsuit that's going on is trying to undo the will of the
Yeah.
people. And who did you guys
100%.
ask, for some help on that issue? You asked
I've asked some advice from you.
You asked us, and we're here to do that. Kendra, I was thinking about you specifically with this issue. I learned such a life lesson with you, and we're not going to talk about it. I learned to kind of stay in my lane.
Go ahead, I'll have a little.
I learned to stay in my lane, and my lane is I'll be in the courtroom, and I'll be on the ballot, and it doesn't mean that recall is wrong. Recall, what you guys have done speaks for itself.
And I don't think
Just-
that's the issue, Sam. I think it's just that so much blood, sweat, and tears went into that
It's
recall. It was scary doing it. Shay, I wasn't even, if I left my house without my gun, I was in big trouble that night. I mean, it was just a big, scary thing, and it wasn't, it was fun meeting all the people that were like-minded for sure, but it was a lot of work, and it needed to be done, and whether you're a part of Unite Norman or not, wasn't the case here. We want to learn about you and
Yeah.
what you stand for, and
Your thoughts on Allison Patron? Things like that.
Well, I'm running against Allison. I think she lives in Norman. I think
Is she
her husband
running?
is. From what I hear.
From what we hear, she is, but
Hey,
it'll
look,
be interesting to.
Let's just take one more conversation piece with this, okay? Ward 3 had 1,250 people support Allison Patron, and this is part of what I thought about when I thought to sign it or not. I'd like to try to represent all of Ward 3. I know that some of those people signed her recall petition. I know that some of them didn't. I'm trying to bring Norman back together. That's why I'm running. It's not because you're wrong. You're right. You've done what you've needed to do. I've been there every step along the way to support you individually, and if you need to decide on me based upon the act of signature or the other acts I've chosen, that's fair, and I understand. But for me, I know my lane, and I'm trying to stay in that lane. I understand if you are in a different lane or think differently. That's as honest as I can be with it. When it comes to Allison, she lives in this town. I think that she wants to do well. I think that her husband is from this town. I don't think they're bad people. I would never say that. I would never think that. I think that her constituency, including this constituent, does not have confidence in her. This is about her performance on city council if she chooses to run again as the incumbent, and whether myself or the challenger who I've spoken with and reached out to meet and to congratulate on his decision to run and talk to him about this issue. I took that initiative to do that. That's what kind of person I am. But I don't hardly agree with any decision that she's made. And I see the consequences of some of the decisions that she's made. In Inspire Health, what happened, and I have knowledge of this, to go back to that, is the day after that happened with Mr. Split, Costco, who is considering Norman and would have helped with our revenue issues dramatically, called and said that if a city official would treat the hospital or healthcare CEO this way, how would they treat the CEO of a major retailer, and made a decision to move that operation north of our boundaries and away from our tax rolls.
How do you feel about a Costco or something like that coming in and helping us grow and increase our sales tax revenue?
Economic development is a buzzword that just gets torn apart both ways. You know, Norman economic development's what it's about to me. The inevitable thing is that Costco and large retailers are necessary, they're great, they provide quality of life, and more than anything, consumers want them. And we need to recruit and we need to attract, and there were so many hours of time that were spent trying to bring Costco in here as that example. And we need to recruit more, and we need to go after them. We have a budget problem here in Norman. That is the question, I think, or something we talked about was the three things: trust, transparency, credibility, reinforcing public safety, which we're going to get to. But balancing the budget is one of the main things that I'm focused on.
Inspire Health is something people need to look into more, and kind of, you know, the Costco decision.
It's a great case study.
Oh, it's a great case study, and you can't exactly.
I don't know what
we
Inspire
can't.
Health is.
Well, I'll have Sam go into this whole thing, but I can tell you that when Richie Split was dressed down, just the timing of Costco completely pulling out, you know, it's just a signal to the world. This is not a safe and it's not a safe place to develop under this leadership. So that, you know, people pulled out. They went to more. They went other places, and we're suffering because of it.
Absolutely, and you have to pay attention to that. You have to recruit, and I want to try to be part of that solution and recruit. And I think I have the experience and wherewithal to do that. And you have to learn from some of these issues that have divided us.
Yes.
All right. And I'm sorry, Denise. What I mean by that, just be quiet. I love talking about this stuff. Sorry, get fired up.
No, go.
Slow down. But you have to talk about all of the economic development centers in Norman equally at the same time and give them the same time and attention. You have to have the same passion for Lindsay Street, Campus Corner, Main Street,
Right.
University North Park, 12th and Alameda, 12th and Cedar Lane, all of the wonderful sales tax revenue generators and all of the wonderful commercial districts. We need to have all those discussions, and those discussions are taking place, but we're not having them all. And the city certainly, I don't think, is tuned into them. And part of my plan of action if I was to serve on Ward 3 is to bring some attention back to that. If we do that grassroots style in this town as elected officials, we can generate more sales tax revenue. We can balance the budget. We can hopefully get to a budget that will sustain things financially for us to where we don't have to borrow federal money to pay for our city projects, to where we actually have money to finish things. And meet the will of the voters that has been on the books so long for Norman Ford. And we then have trust. I think the dominoes fall. We then have trust to have our voters say, when we want to borrow more money for quality of life, we trust you. And I really think what we saw in the special election, which was the real low point for me this year.
The bonds.
Yeah, they're not going to give them any more money till we
Yeah,
trust them.
it's a trust issue more than
Yeah,
anything.
it is.
To
It's a
me,
trust
I
issue.
interpret it as a vote of no confidence.
I like that.
Sam,
So,
Catherine
sorry.
Catherine chimed in and wants to know specifically, a little more specific about how you would grow business in Norman.
So I think, first of all, if we if we fix and heal our trust issues and fix transparency, and we are not seen as somebody or a town, a city, a government, if you will, that maybe makes business so difficult, that's where it starts. It starts with attitude. It starts with attitude, and then it starts with performance. Specifically, though, you have to pay attention to the ability of the people that build things to continue to build things and add to our city and generate permits and licensing and all those things that fill public coffers in the general fund. But you have to have the same amount of attention and intention when it comes to some of the vacancies we have. Now, we're coming out of a pandemic. Economically, we're low. Our budget in this city is red. Our capital fund is down. We don't have money that we need right now. We're borrowing and we don't have a game plan. You have to really start from zero with this wonderful attitude, and you go by district and you identify the leaders and you organize the leaders and you talk to those shopping center owners and you find out what their needs are, what they're looking for, and you lead. We can't even get to that conversation right now because we're having all the wrong conversations in this town. That's just
So
it's not hard for me to talk about. I'm
Speaking of
sorry.
that, I mean, when you get a grant to support the police when you're already in the red, isn't that a no-brainer?
I think that it was a very simple decision. I think that any time that you get a grant, you have to look at what strings there are. All right, this due diligence. You have to look at it. You have to not just be accepting of everything. I mean, you have to do your job. And I'm not sure I don't think that's exactly what happened this year.
Right.
But on that specific issue, to me, that was a very easy decision.
You would have accepted the
I
grant.
think it's a very easy decision.
Yeah.
Very, very simple.
And they went a way you wouldn't have gone.
Well, school resource officers in Norman have been a really good thing.
Right.
Norman Public Schools says so. Norman Police says so.
Norman kids say so.
Norman kids.
Our kids say so.
Parents.
I understand the problems. I understand the different perspectives. These are important. And I think it's a
For
good
sure.
bridge to get into defunding the police. That's such an important moment. It's a moment worthy of conversation and a lot of conversation. That's not what happened. It wasn't conversation. It was something else. And I think that the judge found that it was an agenda that wasn't put out there transparently
He
this
did.
past week when he made a finding.
That's right.
And we could have done something great in this town by being conversant with our law enforcement officers and with those that were so emotional and affected by racial injustice and George Floyd. And we just didn't do it. We didn't do it at all. We turned into something.
The
completely
NC4RJ
different.
group showed up, calling our officers just absolutely terrible names. Not one of our city council members defended our fine officers. That wasn't a scheduled question, but you're kind of on that subject about that night. So tell me about what you thought about the NC4RJ group showing up.
NC4RJ has every right to be there, has every right to get those important feelings out there. I think what you're asking me, Russ, is what do I think about the fact that they were there and the officers didn't have notice? Well, how did they have notice?
That's one question, but also
I know
no
that-
defense
I
of
know
them from our
that
council
you're-
members.
Yeah, and that's the more important issue, is I think that our council members showed that they absolutely had a bias.
Right.
What would
But they
council
didn't
members
tell us
do?
about it.
What would you do as a council member in
Listen.
that situation? Any idea?
Listen,
I don't know what I
I'd
would
listen, and I would make sure to be transparent, and I would make sure not to try to politicize such an important moment for my
Right.
own 2 cents or my own personal feelings, which I think happen too much. When you have a council member who's no longer serving on council, was unsuccessful running for a state office, who admitted after the fact that she had a long-standing issue with law enforcement, and she was the one who raised the budget cut. Regardless if you're going to piecemeal or make it technical and argue, is it a budget cut? Is it defunding? Come on, let's not waste time on that. We know what happened. But when you have somebody that should have disclosed that and didn't, you've got real conflict. You got credibility issues, and that's why I'm running.
And
that's why I'm running.
And Sam,
because I won't have those issues.
NC4RJ, nobody here inside United Norman thinks they didn't have a
I know
right to
you
be
don't.
there.
I know you don't.
And they needed to be heard. Then
You're
showing
talking
up
about-
when no one else kind of had notice was interesting timing.
You're talking about the way that it all went down and what
Yeah.
the actual effect was, and you're right. And look what happened. That's what Unite Norman. That's what its foundation is. That's what started this. Now, look. Do I support law enforcement? 1,000%. I got great news for your viewers, by the way. I had a very lucky encounter today at the courthouse. I got to meet Norman's 15th detective. And so it was one of those first days on the job, and he was just promoted, and it was a neat deal. And he stopped to thank me for running. And
15?
15.
Oh.
Investigations. When I said detective,
Oh, okay.
what I mean is in the Department of Investigations,
I got you.
we're at 15. Now, that brings about some real issues. We're down a bunch.
We're down a lot.
Morale is low. As talking to these guys, I've talked to so many
It's
officers.
depressing to go in there, isn't it?
They're not depressed. They're going to work,
Yeah.
and they are positive, but they want a city government, and they want counselors to improve their morale. They got big issues to solve. I've talked to friends of mine in the last several weeks who believe and I think are very supportive of me, and I'm supportive of them because we listen and have a good relationship. We are getting out competed for our own officers going to other municipalities, and they need help. We've got serious budgetary issues. Besides just defunding and the morale issue that creates.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to get in there and solve some of these problems.
Yeah, it's a morale issue. Being depressed and low morale are a couple different things, but there is low morale. At least there was until, not because of me or anyone here, but a group of citizens stood up and said, no, we're going to defend these people. And we've gotten lots of thank yous, and everybody else has. And
You okay?
because,
Yeah.
You awake?
That was just alarm to wake up.
Okay. All right. Still here.
Yeah.
All right. We gonna get to our questions?
Yeah. Where are you on the proposed charter change amendments, the petitions that we're circulating now, the 3 of them?
Yeah.
The first one, let's talk about the changing the threshold for recall. As you know, we have one of the hardest, one of the highest thresholds to recall in America.
Yeah.
Most cities are 25% of the people that voted in the last election. We're actually trying to make it even harder than that, but easier than it is now, because as you know, Kate Bierman, in December during a council meeting said it's virtually impossible to recall a politician in this town. So she kind of just did her own thing afterwards. Tell us what you think about lowering the threshold for recall. We don't want to use it as a weapon, by the way.
Yeah, and I think you guys have made your position real clear that you think that from your own experience and what you talked about going through the experience you went through, you have a very poignant and good position on it. I, think that Robert Castleberry's idea as an example is a good one about the votes from the last election, 25%, kind of the 125%.
Yeah.
I really liked what he had to say about the timing, the 45 days.
Mhm.
And so that, when I was talking to him about it, when those issues were coming up, made a lot of sense to me. That's kind of what I think about it. Recall can not be too easy, but it has to be correct, and it's a good point that is being made, but that's kind of my viewpoint. That's how I would handle
And
it.
we-
Have
and
you
we
signed
moved-
that petition?
Yeah.
I haven't got an opportunity to sign that
We have
petition.
copies on your way out.
And I would be very interested in signing that petition. So.
And we moved it to 100%. Robert and I talked about it, and
Yeah.
he I think he's, maybe I'm saying something I should, but I think he felt okay at 100% as well.
Yeah.
Because the point was not to use it as a weapon,
Yeah.
but it needs to be used as a democratic tool to pull out a tyrannical government.
If you have that situation present to where you have people that are not doing their job and not serving their constituents, and they're acting out of minority interests or based upon a national political agenda that they may have, then sometimes I respect that recall is a legal process that is out there. It's been around, may not be as utilized, but it certainly has a place, and it should be a fair process.
Right. Okay.
So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Changing the times of the meetings. Right now, they go until 3 a.m. Oklahoma City starts at 8:30. A second petition we're circulating is to have our council have some more decorum by showing up during business hours. What are your thoughts on that?
I think now's the time to make the change. I've always been a big supporter of it. I think that the opposite position of not doing it was always stated that it limits public access. Well, I think what we've learned from the pandemic in 2020 is that technology has altered life, and that communication is different, and the public access is different. I mean, none of us would have thought in 2019 we were going to have city council meetings online, and I know how we all
Right.
Can go back and forth on whether that's a good thing or a bad
Sure.
thing. But for the point of public comment and making sure that it's a transparent process and it's not hidden during the light of day, although you can argue it's being hidden during the night going into the next morning.
Yeah.
It's not as
Yeah.
transparent.
Dark of night.
There's no perfect solution, but I support moving it to daytime. I think that Oklahoma City has taught us a valuable lesson. I think
It works out for them.
that more has too. I think it has worked out, and I think that although I love what makes us Norman and that we're not more Oklahoma City, I do think that learning how to function our government based upon those success stories should persuade us.
All right, the third one, and I call this the Sean Boyd issue. We had the tragic loss and sudden loss of David Perry, and the council, as you know, put together a replacement committee. They committed to selecting who the replacement committee was going to choose,
No,
and then nothing.
Sean
No
extremely well, was talking
Yeah.
to him that night, was talking to the people in the selection committee, have those relationships and care about these issues, and was heavily invested. Again, it had already made the decision to run for Ward 3
Right.
as this was going on. And I will tell you that it's pretty simple to me that the voters need to pick their council member, and I understand the situation, but especially in 2020, the issue should have been a special election. That was pretty easy
Right.
because we already knew that there were distrust issues.
Right.
But going forward, I really support that process because the people should always choose who their representatives are. That is such a foundation of who we are. I just don't believe our elected officials should make that selection like a committee selection. This is a representative.
And then not choose
position.
the committee's recommendation.
That's
So
a
it sounds
whole-
like,
that's a whole other deal.
in summary, it
That's a
sounds
whole
like.
thing.
That's a whole other deal.
Now, I didn't quite get there with what you feel about the recall petition, but it sounds like you do support 2 and 3 for sure, like the 8:30 meeting and then.
Yeah, recall. I think recall.
No, I mean the recall threshold.
I know,
Like,
and
yeah,
I think
okay.
that charter amendment petition, I think that, I'm still thinking about it, chewing on it, and, listening and paying attention. I don't pretend to know everything about everything, and I don't want to represent or serve that way, but I appreciate and understand completely.
Right. Okay. I've hogged the questions. You've got yours the same ones I have.
Oh, this is a good one. Do we pay enough in taxes here? What's our sales tax rate now? Almost 10%?
It's
875. What does it
It's
say?
875.
8.75.
It's the
8
highest.
point something?
It's the highest it is.
State and city.
Yeah, it's
Not just
as
city.
high as it gets.
What's Oklahoma City? 8.375?
I don't know.
I think something like that. Yeah.
I think that our tax rate is high. I think that
Two.
our voters said our tax rate is high and they didn't want to borrow bonds. And if we would have asked them to increase the taxes, who knows what the turnout would have been and the actual data and vote count would have been. We saw what it was for bonds and
Right.
indebtedness. I think that we have to do more as a government that is deserving of that tax rate, but I wouldn't necessarily change it. We spend right now 0.7% for capital in the capital fund. I mean, we need that. We've got a half cent from Norman Forward. Voters have approved that. We've got public safety sales tax. We've got the transit component. We've got all of these things that are Norman,
Yeah.
that is us, and that is quality of life. And so I support our tax rate. Our elected officials have to do more for our consumers and our voters for that tax rate. And we have to get out there and improve the vibrancy of Norman and our retail and our revenue to be able to use that tax rate to pay for the things that we want to do so that we can all live and have our kids enjoy this city. When I grew up here, this city was unbelievable. And we've lost a little bit of that as we've grown, but we still have it. We still have it in front of us. I believe that. That's why I'm running to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's why we didn't leave. The city still got the potential. You know, a lot of people left.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like it is happening. I feel like 2020 has brought a culmination of all of these important moments together and all of these people together that it's brought together and all of these representatives and good candidates on the ballot to go be the change that we've talked about. And this time is coming.
This is not a city issue, but many are curious. I've gotten this question a lot. What are your and it's gonna. We asked Chris Lewis this last time. It's gonna go to every other candidate. What are your feelings on the Second Amendment in general?
Besides being the Second Amendment of the Constitution,
Yeah, like, I mean,
and
how-
being pretty apparent.
Well, you know, assault rate that goes into like assault rifles, things like that.
What do I think? What do I think about the Second Amendment is that it's pretty clear cut, and I'm in support of the Second Amendment. I own a firearm personally. I don't believe in restrictive laws regarding gun ownership in the Second
Right.
Amendment,
Yeah.
and specifically, I think that the Supreme Court has been pretty definitive when it comes to municipal involvement. We're talking about a municipal,
Yeah.
me serving as a council member.
Right.
The Supreme Court has said that restrictive measures and regulations regarding Second Amendment rights is usually a pretty easy and big no-no, and I believe in the law.
Okay.
I mean, so I can be. We can talk the law, but we shouldn't. In this, I can be real short. That's what I think about it.
Great. That's the answer. Do you want to do an audience question? Or?
Yes, we have several.
Okay.
Okay.
We've got quite a few coming in. I thought this was a great one from Laura. She said, should there be a cap on how many members on council are tied to or employed by OU? Should there be a law just like it is for a city employee that they cannot be a council member?
Wow, that's a really interesting thought, and it's not something I've given a lot of thought to, although I have watched certain privileged positions from the University of Oklahoma who cannot be checked and balanced potentially have their way in city government and have a negative effect. So I certainly have some strong feelings. I've paid attention to it for a long time. I don't know if it needs an actual ordinance, rule, amendment, whatever the appropriate legal process would be, but I think it's very serious. You have elections, and I've spent a lot of time, we've talked about recall petitions, elections, we've talked about all of these issues. It's up to the voters to be informed. It's up to the constituents to inform the voters. And I think that that's a very fair criticism based on Norman's most recent history is when you have maybe a cap or too many people and too much swing on the council in one way or the other. You have imbalance. I don't believe in imbalance. I believe in balance of government across the board. It's one of the core principles.
And tied to that, this one says, what does Sam think about council members being held to the standard of conduct unbecoming the same as officers?
Another really interesting issue I haven't thought a whole lot about. I think that's a really well said and well thought, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Both are deemed, in most people's eyes, public servants.
Chris says he's an HOA president and he has issues with basic
Infrastructure.
basic infrastructure like sidewalks, streets, stormwater, traffic control for his businesses. He believes that's basic for council. Should there be incentive for city employees to help in these regards?
It should be prioritized. It should be discussed more, and I think what Chris, points out is that it should not only be discussed. I mean, there's too many times in city government in Norman where discussion is the solution. We need action, and I think that there are creative ways to deal with it. And I think that when it comes to infrastructure complaints, like let's say we have those in Ward 3, if he was an HOA in Ward 3, he had those sidewalk issues. I mean, there is people at the city that work for the city to report that to, but I think that again, through the means of technology or improved communication, that we need to get that list, if you will, or those issues addressed in a more expedient way. And so he's got a great point, and I just want the opportunity to try to work on situations like that and issues like that instead of spending so much time, on basic trust and credibility issues, and we need to solve that.
So you mentioned Ward 3 specifically. So
Yeah.
Shay has a great question about Ward 3.
Shay, I
Hey,
wonder
Shay.
which Shay
Oh,
that
yeah.
could
Here we
be.
go again.
So he's coming in with, he wants your opinion on zoning in Ward 3 and the potential loss of property values from the newer apartments and lower income housing. And also, why is the middle class leaving Norman?
Oh, well, thanks for the softball question, Shay. I really appreciate it. It must be fun, Kendra. The conversation could be a little intense there.
He's worried about not being able to shoot his gun at the farm is the real question. Nobody's changing your farm zoning, you're good.
I think that
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
right.
zoning and variances in the variance process, and I think that it's too tough at times. And I think that it all comes back, Shay, to having a plan. We have 2020 plans, 2025 plans. They don't get visited enough. They get made too early. We don't do economic development or redevelopment and focusing on some of these areas that could be repurposed, redeveloped, and re-envisioned with leadership and with creativity and with good private involvement too. But you have to change the attitude of those issues, and I think that it does lead to people leaving here. Why do middle class leave here? They're not making as much money as they're making in other places. Quality of life is not as good as it is in other places. You have to have those things in balance. You have to have great wages, wonderful employers, and frankly, it's just pretty simple. And I've talked to a lot of people, chambers of commerce people, and for example, any people, hospitals trying to bring in doctors and nurses, and Norman Regional, Norman Chamber of Commerce, all these conversations that I'm out there already trying to have just as an involved citizen. You have to have more jobs in Norman. You have to have better paying jobs in Norman. And we need to attract more employment. And it's so simple and so hard, but we just need to get to work, roll up our sleeves, and do it.
Pat had something, didn't he?
We have a point of information. You mentioned Patron. As of tonight, she has not filed
I know,
to run
and
in Ward 3. She's got 24 more hours.
yeah,
Windows closing.
soon.
Yeah.
This is after Kate
Look-
Bierman, of course, not running in Ward 1.
Yeah, and I know,
Sarita Wilson
and
resigning in Ward 5.
that could be what happens, and I wish her well. If she chooses not to, I wish her well if she chooses to run, and I'm not afraid to go eye to eye and discuss things with her. I'm not going to be rude. This town doesn't need that, and I'm not going to be dismissive, and I'm not going to act superior. I think that I'm going to treat her with respect while disagreeing with her positions and really spreading my vision for what we could do. And my vision, first and foremost, is this positive attitude that I believe I bring and some credibility. I've been working for it for a long time, and it's something that's at my core and real serious about me. So we'll see what happens. And if she runs, then she runs, and if not, she does not. So
We kind of suggest she doesn't.
Maybe she
Well-
knows and
Yeah,
feels that the recall is gonna stick
It's-
and that.
Well, let's talk about the chamber a little more, because I have some
Yeah, I
chamber
agree.
envy.
I agree with
I
you.
hope you make some change with the chamber, I really do, because last weekend, Noble's Chamber had Christmas in Noble, they had a festival, hot chocolate crawl, whatever that is. Moore
What is that?
has people coming from Norman to join the Moore Chamber, disappoints me. I want our chamber to be great and grand, and I think that helps bring things in if we have a chamber we can trust that is pro-business, that is pro-activity. It's hard to look around and see these other towns and their chambers, I feel like are doing all these great things, and I think we should do that.
I'm
here,
a
but-
strong supporter of the Norman Chamber of Commerce, and I love Scott Martin, and he's a friend, and somebody that I looked up to and have a good relationship with. I think that your ideas, I would say, let's take those ideas and put some action to them. I know that there's a lot of challenges right now in working to set stuff up.
Well, that was the second part of my question that I heard asked.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, is it our council that's inhibiting our chamber? Is it making it hard for them to be proactive and active in that way? Or
I just don't
You mean
think,
because of the divisiveness, like, or
Well,
just
just
like
the
restricted?
shutdowns. No groups of 50. No more than 25 people in your house. No.
I don't think that
does
they're
this inhibit
helping.
them? Right.
The council right now is not doing enough to help with quality of life and with business, and I think that's just a fact. All right, that's just me. I think that the relationship between the chamber and the council in Norman historically is very strong. I think that right now it may not be one of those strong moments, and I think that we need to keep pouring into that relationship and help get it back to the standard that we all want for the results that we want.
Working together.
Working together sure sounds like a plan to me. So
Okay, we have.
How long are we into this, by the way? 30 minutes, 45?
It's 6:19.
50 minutes?
Wow.
Okay.
About
Fast.
time. We
Yeah.
all talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's been some hard questions coming in, so I'm gonna grab this one. It says, that our people very much fear not having transparency. So in that light, Jeremy says, I have concerns that you have respect for Unite Norman, but are not willing to get involved to support a cause because of your own agenda. That seems consistent with current issues and our current council members. Actions seem louder than words. What can you offer that would give us citizens confidence that you will stand up for them without hesitation rather than focusing on your own ambitions?
Yeah, it wasn't an ambition thing. It was more of if I'm going to try to repair trust and credibility, and I'm going to represent all of Ward 3, this is the way I'm going to choose to do it. This is the lane that I'm going to pick. So Jeremy's question is fair. And so, here's what I think even more about it. I have always been supportive of almost every single person in this room. There's been some, and I think that your supporters need to know that. You've called me, and I've been there. You've called me, I've called you, and I've been there. And I have talked with you guys every time that you've needed help, and I've been helpful, and I have been supportive. And we support the same thing. Our mission is the same. Transparency. Our mission is to support our police in Norman like we always have. Our mission is to not let what has transpired to occur ever again. All right? But it's just, I have a business, I have interests. I don't think that's ambition. I also knew I was going to run. I'm trying to be transparent, honest with you now of what was going through my mind when I made the decision. It's, you know, it's just what my decision was. And I think there's a lot of people that did not sign the petition that were supporters of Unite Norman's message. And I think that I've heard that from several, and I don't want you guys to discredit the good people that are on the same page with you. And I don't think that's going on. I don't think that's what Jeremy said. I just don't want it to turn into that. We need to support one another.
So there were highs and lows during the petition signing time, and you know, I called you, and he did. He answered the phone and gave me some good words of wisdom. I appreciate that.
I'll always be there.
CARES Act money, we haven't.
Yeah, that's a fun one. CARES Act money.
They want to know specifically what your thoughts are on the pet projects and the capital investment.
And I do have to say that we have a lot more followers in Ward 3, so I feel like you're getting a lot more questions,
Yeah.
but I think it's just
Yeah.
because we have a larger following in Ward 3 and Ward 5.
I think it's
And
great.
so I do
I'm
think it's
an
great,
open
but
book.
No power.
They're coming in. I'm trying to keep it.
What was the question,
No power in the
Denise?
trails.
We were talking about CARES Act
so
money.
CARES money. The
So-
CARES Act money that came in and their use on pet projects as well as the capital investment on the senior center instead of infusing it into our local businesses.
I was disappointed that the earmarked dollars were not used what the earmarked dollars were for. I was disappointed we did not have the revenue to pay for the projects out of our general fund, and I would have held off on some of those decisions and used the CARES Act money for what people need right now, which is that money to go towards what it was earmarked for, which is support through the pandemic for people who need it, for businesses that need it. I'm glad that we got the money that we got right now for the grant program that the city released, but I sure would think that the entirety of the money or a larger portion of it should have been utilized and allocated as it was received. So, sorry.
No, agree. Another conversation is the homeless
Mm-hmm.
in Norman.
Yeah, we got a real problem with it, and it's a serious issue. And the homeless shelter on the bond election was one proposed solution, and we've talked about that. You've got to pay attention to mental health, and you've got to pay attention to addiction issues, and you've got to pay attention to all of the things that help turn the tide of homelessness. And that would be part of my plan, is to renew attention towards those things to try to help solve the problem. You got to get to the root. What we do as attorneys all the time is we try to go to roots of issues to really make life change happen when it's possible. And so that's something I'm used to. I do day in and day out, and that's how I would focus on it, is try to go to those roots, to repair those roots, to fix the issue. I think it's terribly sad. I think that there's a lot of support for a homeless shelter, except on the ballot right now because of confidence issues. And I think that it was interesting that it was the closest, you know, in terms of what the voters said, with the way the data came out. And I think we got a big problem. I hear a lot from people who are worried about the ability to do business or live quality of life with the current height that the homelessness problem has really raised in Norman. We got to always have our heart out. You know, first, that's who we are as Norman, that's who we are as Oklahomans, but we got to get in there and find some real solutions.
But the homeless shelter in general, I mean, do you think that causes more of a problem, or like it?
I don't know. You know, and I didn't, it went so, the way it did on the ballot, and I don't think that that the whole vision was ever explained well about how, if the money got allocated through the bond indebtedness,
Right.
what it was really going to look like. And I know that stuff was somewhat out there, but
Sure.
leadership is what matters, and that wasn't decided. So if a homelessness shelter was going to be approved, you know, how was it going to be run? We just had food and shelter, you know, kind of shut down.
Yeah.
And you know,
Sad.
if it was something like all the great work they did for decades and years, and it was led well, I don't know. But I'm just being honest about it. I don't think there's an answer that any of us
Oh, it's a
can
complicated
say
issue.
is
I mean,
is
it's
right
it's-
or wrong
right.
now.
You want to help, but you don't want to encourage.
Yeah,
And
have to
this
help.
is one of the hardest
no.
issues in Norman. I think it's one of them. Is how do we help them, and how Do we not encourage more of it and more people to be bussed in? It's a complicated solution,
Yeah.
complicated question.
It's a hot topic on our group meetings.
Let's get to cold
Day in and
topics.
day out.
Let's get to fun things.
Yeah.
Want to? We're approaching an hour.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Okay, you can't say scratch.
Okay.
What's your favorite place to eat in Norman?
Oh, Legends. I love Joe and Rebecca. There's some dishes there that I think are amazing. Taiwan Thai in Ward 3 is pretty legit. Volcano Sushi is legit. You should not have asked that question. We've got another hour to go. Pepe's
Oh, boy.
is a mainstay.
What's
so
up,
I'll
Emilio?
be quiet. But,
Yeah, no,
those are
I'll keep
important
going.
things.
I'll cut you off if you're asking me to.
Those are important things to
How
me.
about Pepe's West Side?
We've had some discussions about it. We've had some discussions about it.
Pepe's West.
Got the spot.
What do you like to read? Or are you reading something now?
So I read all day, every day.
Well, yeah, for a living. But,
And so I read, it's going to sound really nerdy, and it is. I read cookbooks. I read, I don't
back to
read.
the food thing.
I do. I read. I just enjoy it. It's relaxing. I read. Gosh, just anything I can get my hands on. To be honest with you, and that's a good question. It's a left field
it's
question.
a big one. These are fun here.
Yeah, no, they are.
Sooner Dairy or Classic 50s?
Both. I know them. I know both families, both owners real well.
Yeah.
There was
So
an or in there.
one day and the other.
There you go.
Well-
Jerry Sieber is a friend, and,
Yeah.
and Randy at Sooner Dairy. My grandmother, used to eat Sooner Dairy hamburgers all the
Yeah,
time, and
milkshakes.
had a great little saying that she would only eat it there because it wasn't the same if you took it away from there. You had to eat it fresh.
It's kind of an experience there. You know.
So
That's
I
how
love them
volcano
both.
sushi is too.
Love them
You
both.
can eat it there.
You subscribe to the transcript, probably.
Absolutely.
Big.
Big supporter.
Favorite musical group, album?
Oh, actually, I have a campaign playlist. I'm
Oh, boy.
all
I'd
into.
like to see that, yeah.
It's fun.
It's all EDM?
No, I'm all
Glow
into.
sticks and such?
I'm all into 80s right now. Genesis, I think,
Oh, boy,
has been
yeah.
great to bring
Yeah.
back for me this year. It's been real positive
Sure.
and a good way to deal with serious issues in a lighthearted manner. You got to listen to some of those lyrics. man.
Did you do the drum roll in your car? We just gotta know.
I always have music playing.
There's some dance called the Lisa.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Let's circle that
I'm
around.
not doing it. Please still do it.
Okay, well, he committed you to that, Lisa.
Lisa's on the next live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, doing the
We'll
Lisa.
schedule her.
So we're approaching an hour. I want to say something that Sam would be 100% better candidate than what's in there now. We're going to have another Ward 3 candidate on tomorrow, Kelly Lynn, and we're going to talk to him. And Sam has reached out to Kelly, and
It's the right thing
had
to
a
do.
cordial conversation. It sounded like from both parties, which I wouldn't expect anything different from the two of you. And but he'd be 100% better than what we have in there now. So we appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to?
No, just thank
say
you
or
again.
closing? Yeah.
Just thank you again. I know there was, a lot there, and that we could go on a long time. I'm
We could,
available. I'm open. I'm easy to find, and anybody that wants to talk to me, I'm happy to talk to.
We're going to ask you later on in the campaign before the election to come on. We're going to ask everybody to come on one more time.
Okay.
And come and have, as the campaign develops and different issues come up, we'd love you on to talk about some of those.
Okay, man. Sounds good.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man. I
yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Is it in?